Good morning, everyone. Hello from Boston. My name is David Ingram. I'm the Vice President for Research and Development at Gillette here in Boston. I got on Monday a slide that I have to share at the start of this presentation. So let me move to my first slide. This is, for those of you that know sports, this is the TD Garden in Boston, where the Boston Celtics play. And, what could be better for somebody that lives in Boston than to have the Celtics in game 4 of the playoffs for the NBA winning. Jason Tatum has a free throw and your brand is advertised in the Garden. And not only that, but the agile coach that helped you develop the product is sitting in the audience taking the photo and sending it to you. So this is almost the end of our story, if you like. I'm going to start the story today actually 120 years earlier with this gentleman. And this man here is King Camp Gillette, and he founded the Gillette company in 1901. And one of the philosophies that he founded the company with is written here on the top left of the screen. And he said, we'll stop making razor blades when we can't keep making them better. And you can still see that philosophy very much alive in the Gillette company today. And, as evidence, did he do what he set out to do with that statement in 1901? I think this is a great illustration of then what that company turned into. I love here how you can see the evolution of our products getting ever more closer and delivering a closer and more comfortable shave. What I like about this for those Gillette users in the audience is you can probably date yourself quite accurately by picking, the product here where you started shaving. I know I can pick mine. It's further on the left than I would like, but that ages me quite accurately for Gillette users in the audience. But you can see a really strong legacy of products based on innovation and upgrades to the hardware and major new launches every, call it, 7 to 10 years that we came out with. Now, there's two real things that I think you can say underpin this really strong evolution of products over time. The first of those is our approach to innovation and how we do innovation. On the left here, you can see, yes, we really do invite people into our labs. We really do watch them shaving. And we really do record and ask them what's going on as we do that. And we do that every day. And being in touch with our consumers, as we call them, is really, really important to us. The second thing that we do in the middle there is understand shaving science. It's not such an easy thing to generate a shaver. If you think about a human hair is tougher actually than copper wire. And what you're trying to do is cut those copper wires with blades that are sharper than a surgeon's scalpel against skin, something as soft as skin. So the challenge with shaving is actually a really, really complex technical problem that we need to understand better and better all the time. And then on the right there, as you would imagine, with the products that we make, we have an awful lot of prototyping, testing, and simulation that we do to develop better and better products over time. So that's how we go about our innovation. The other side of the innovation that we do, though, is really about the how. And this was the best photo that I could find. And everyone in the audience should recognize what this is here, a waterfall. And waterfall is ingrained in how we develop our products. It's what everyone does. It's how we operate, how we bring things to market. I often joke that we could maybe hire ourselves out as consultants to teach this waterfall how to be a better waterfall. So that's the context of our company. Now, switch to what's happening. So I come into my job in the fall of 2019. And our last product that we'd launched was our Fusion Pro Shield Razor in 2016. And we didn't have a plan for our next product yet that we'd agreed on. And yet I was given a challenge by our CEO to come up with a new razor that we would launch in early 2022 that would be better than any razor that we'd ever launched before. The only problem as well with that was that the world has changed in the meantime. If you look at all of those products historically, people look very different now, and they have different grooming needs from historically what we saw in the Gillette company. And so the challenge that we had was develop a better razor than we've ever made before in less time than we've ever developed a razor before. And we knew how long it would take in waterfall, and we didn't have long enough in a world that was very different from the world in which we'd launched our previous products. So looking at this and being new in the job, I knew that we had to do something different. We couldn't follow the ways that we'd done innovation before and expect that we would have a successful outcome. There just wasn't enough time. We needed to do something different. So I went to talk to people in the company, you know, in the broader Procter & Gamble company, there are always people that are running trying new things. And I went to talk about people that have tried to go faster and try new things and what should we try? And the advice I got back after talking to people and looking at the different things that we could do was that it seemed like Scrum was going to be the right methodology. Our challenge was primarily a design challenge, not an execution challenge. So it looked like for us to get that design part of our project done in record timing, Scrum seemed to be the methodology that we should adopt. So what did we do? Well, the second piece of fantastic advice that I got when I was asking about what we should do was, if you're going to go and try Scrum, go and hire an expert. Now, Boston, as well as being a great place for watching sports, is also a great place to go and find great agile coaches. And we were lucky enough to find ourselves a great expert in Yuval Yeret, who many of you hopefully will know in the audience today. This is my favorite photo of him because it makes him look terrible. He never objects to this photo. And why would he? He's getting tickets in the TD Garden to watch the Celtics play basketball. So we hired Yuval and we got him on board, and that was great. We had somebody that knew what to do. But now what we had to do was try and transition the way that we worked from Waterfall into Scrum. And we had several challenges to go through as we did that. The first was that a team for us to do this initiative is about 55 people. And obviously that doesn't fit into a maximum of about 9 people into a Scrum team. So the first thing that we had to figure out was, how do we break up this initiative into a scaled Scrum format and we ended up with 7 teams, and we split our initiative up into the different parts of the proposition that need to be developed for a launch. So we had a team working on the Razor, a team working on the packaging, a team working on the marketing, a team working on the financials and the cost structure, et cetera, et cetera. So we broke the team up into 7 different teams, which was brand new for us. We'd never done that before. The second thing was, okay, now we've got the 7 teams, we need POs and Scrum Masters for these teams. Never had those roles before, they never existed, but something that we needed to identify people that would go and do those roles. Third thing, a backlog. The way that we had historically in Waterfall written our project briefs was really a list of things to keep people happy as we develop the project, but a backlog forces us to prioritize. And taking all of that wish list of things to deliver and really distilling it down to the few things for all the teams to deliver on was a major difference in how we operate our projects. So a backlog was critical for us. We figured with 7 different development teams that we would need to have an integration team to see once a week how all of our teams were working together and to go and figure out the integrated proposition, how it was coming together. So we formed an integration team, which was the product owners of all our different development teams. We needed to have a CPO team above the development teams to really help steer the teams together and manage the overall project backlog. So that was something that we put in place. And given that we are a very multifunctional company, that CPO team was comprised of marketing people, myself from R&D, and manufacturing representatives as well, to make sure that we had all of our major functions represented in the CPO team for the project. We did actually also figure out that we needed an obstacle removal team. You can imagine that as we get the team running, there are all kinds of things that are in the way that are artifacts of how we run projects in Waterfall that we needed to figure out how to remove. So having a dedicated team to remove obstacles was a really important part of our plan. We got running in sprints. We said maximum a month, very different for us with how we would usually work, where we would sign a project brief and come back for a waterfall milestone 9 to 12 months later. Here we were running monthly sprints, so a very different cadence for our project. And lastly, stakeholders. Usually we would write those project briefs, come back 9 to 12 months later to agree that we passed through a milestone gate, and the stakeholders wouldn't really hear from us in between. It was really different here, identifying our group of stakeholders up to our CEO level and engaging them monthly in the process of the project was a real difference in how we operate our projects. So that was it. We figured out a blueprint. We figured out the main things that we needed to do. And basically the next thing to do was train the team. So we did hold a couple of days of training sessions for everyone in the team to figure out how to work in this new world called Scrum. And then basically the next thing we did was get running. So early 2020, We found a space in our offices. You can see here, we got into, displaying our work. We had our Kanban boards working and we were off and running. And it's just as well we got running in person, because I think that gave us the momentum that when everyone got sent home in March 2020 due to the global pandemic, we were able to keep our process going virtually after having that physical in-person start. And what was the outcome of this project? Well, you can probably see from the branding behind me and my t-shirt that I'm wearing that the outcome was our GilletteLabs with Exfoliating Bar Razor, which we did develop on time, which is a better razor than we've ever developed before, and which had several benefits as we worked as a team, as we looked at what worked better for us. And those things that worked better for us were, first of all, parallel creation. The way that we would normally work a project in Gillette would be first to develop the product, then to figure out how to market the product. And it was a very sequential product method of how we would go around developing the product for final sale. The way that we worked this with our scaled Scrum was totally different. We had all of our teams working in parallel and working on those parts of the proposition together, the product at the same time as the advertising, at the same time as the packaging, at the same time as the financials. What that allowed us to do was to see problems and tensions in our proposition much earlier than we would ever have seen them before in a sequential project, because we could see when bits of the proposition didn't fit together or were conflicting. What that led us do was really to get a better amount of decision making. In our old sequential process, these tensions would have been covered up, or we would have lingered with them until the next time we would have come to see our stakeholders, which could have been months away. Since we were running this sprint process with our stakeholders, we could uncover those tensions, recognize them as a team, get them to our stakeholders, get a decision made for the entire project, and then move on. And ultimately, that led us to the speed, which led us to develop the proposition on time, and then in the end, develop our first ever razor that featured in the Super Bowl in 16 years for Gillette. So a great success story. And you would think then that what I'm going to tell you now is that was just the start of it. We went there and we scaled Scrum, and now this is what we do right across the Gillette company, from that one first success. The problem is that wouldn't be true. We tried, first of all, to scale Scrum across different projects, and we found that it just didn't take. We met with a huge amount of resistance to adopt this new methodology called Scrum across all of the projects that we're doing. And we were scratching our heads for a while. It was obviously better. Why weren't we getting adoption of this Scrum methodology? And really the penny dropped when we started to look at why that might be. And I love coming back to this visual of a waterfall here. If you think about a waterfall is carved over millions of years of the water running through the landscape and falling over the natural barriers that it finds. And the water in the end finds its path through the landscape. But the waterfall that develops as well is also very, very powerful. I sometimes laugh at this metaphor here, but imagine taking a hammer to go and change the course of a waterfall. Good luck. It's extremely difficult to do because of that power and because of that natural path that the waterfall has forged. And what we were trying to do to implement Scrum was basically to overturn 120 years of forming this path of this water into this waterfall and take a simple tool to try and change all of that overnight, which wasn't a realistic proposition. Now, one of the things that we did, though, to think about how we could change, and we still had the belief that we needed to be more agile and get better at doing that, was to take a step back. And Gillette as a company, our parent company is Procter Gamble, which is a company that's actually been around for 180 years. And one of the things in our company that is very unchanging over time is our purpose, values, and principles. We score extremely highly on these in our corporate surveys, like upper 90 percentiles for us respecting these. And they're really a part of the way that we do the work that we do. And what's really important in here is you can see that our consumers, the people that buy our products, our brands are important, but also our people. And it was once we started taking a step back and looking at really our values and principles and our purpose that we started to make progress with adoption of agile in our organization. If I fast forward today and I look at where are we on our scaling journey so far, which parts of agile have we adopted into our organization, it's really shown by these circles here. The first thing that we've really adopted is product owners. What we found is that our point of scale previously had been project level, and within that, we'd never formed a stable team around value creation or consumer delight. What we've done is to appoint POs in our organization responsible for a portfolio of projects over a stable value creation period of 5 years. And that's allowing us to look at that value creation journey and how we can be more effective at doing it. The second thing that we've really adopted and helps our teams is a backlog. The clarity on those few objectives for a project team to hit. Don't look at all the noise, don't look at the long wish list of things to deliver, but focus on the backlog is really empowering our teams to get going on what's important. We still keep our CPO and sponsor reviews, and we still, we sprint all of our projects, and we found about a monthly cadence is right for us. I know that's a bit long if you were doing software. It works for us. And we find that those monthly sprints, when we talk to stakeholders, is actually a perfect duration of time. Our organizational memory seems to be about a month. So within a month, we can get the work done, talk to our stakeholders, and avoid having half the session being to remind them what we told them last time. So these are really the pillars, if you like, and the backbone of our agile transition at the moment. What's really interesting to look at is to go back to that first project, the exfoliating razor, and to see how we set that up. And if you probably, if you remember the visual that I showed there, these were the elements of that very first scaled Scrum experiment that we did. And what's really interesting to look at is which one of those elements of that scaled Scrum first project have we adopted now into what we're doing in terms of our agile scaling. And what's really interesting to see is that the POs was something we needed to do and we've hung on to it. The backlog was something we needed to do, we hung on to it. The CPO team and obstacle removal team we call sponsors, we needed and we hang on to it. And the sprints and stakeholders, it was something really valuable that we've held on to. The only thing we haven't scaled, if you like, so far are the two elements for that first project that were particular to that project size. It was the need for a scaled Scrum setup with an integration team, which is very project specific. So it's interesting. Once we started going after principles and where the pain was, we found adoption of Scrum principles, but really focused on where we were having pain and where we could help our teams do better. Then we found adoption for the agile tools. But just going at it and saying, let's do Scrum, we found very little pull to adopt those tools at all. Other things we're finding as we go about our journey to scale agile. First of all, we're finding the shape of our people and the skill sets that they have. As we move to a more integrated way of developing our products, we're finding that the skill sets of our people and what we need is changing. We used to look at people being at the top of this square here. You can see broad people or deep people in terms of their technical mastery. We're finding actually we need different shaped people. And so we're starting to have conversations about developing people that have more of an integrator or product manager profile into our teams. And we're finding a lot of our younger employees are really getting excited by having this product manager role as part of their potential career. The second thing that we're finding really is as we go about this, we're really looking at tools. And I talk about agile tools as being one of the things of value to us, but also our organization design, and most importantly, our culture. And at any given moment in time, our discussion is about our tools maybe is the next thing we need, or our organization design maybe is the next thing we need, or going after our culture is maybe what's needed. And just as an illustration there, at 9:30 this morning, when the sun is properly up in Boston, I'll be announcing an organization design change to make us more agile to more than 100 people in my organization globally as part of our journey to become more agile and do the things that are needed for us to do that transition. Other lesson just that I'm learning as a leader is if you'd have asked me 2 months ago, who do you need to focus on when you're trying to scale agile in an organization? I would have said there's really two different scales that you need to look at. Look at the team and help the team. And then really your job as a leader is to focus on everyone else, everyone that's going to get in the team's way, and hold them up, and all of the systems that exist that are painful for the team today. This is what you need to go after. What I've learned actually in the last few months is there's one point of scale that we also need to work on, and that's the individuals within a team. Because what I'm finding is that as we look at changing our culture, the connections on an individual level to help everyone in our team feel they can contribute, feel that they can have a role in changing the way that we do things, that they will be heard, they will be included, they will be empowered, is a critically important third level of scale for me to work on as a leader. So I spend an awful lot of my time at the moment talking to individuals and helping them feel empowered to make a difference. So overall, if I look at, I see Gilly there. Overall, and maybe there's a message coming through. Overall, if I look at the message here, I go back to King C. Gillette 120 years ago, and we're absolutely doing what he said on his mission that he set us on. There's just one thing that I would add to that now, is that I think what we're finding is, in addition to making better razors, what we're trying to do now is make better teams. That's the story that I had to share. Hopefully that's been interesting and resonated with you and given you something that you can take away. I'd love it if we have time for questions, to hear a couple of questions.